Okay, discourse, so you're basically thinking you're looking at the entire text for these ones. Again, definitions, these are my quick ones off the top of my head, giving you a quick example. Your job is to use the orange textbook to make sure your definitions are really precise, because of course on the exam short answer questions especially, you want to be using it exactly correct. And of course, when you're using it in context in section B and C, you'll need to be specific. These acronyms, some of them are ugly, some of them are memorable, some of them are good, some of them are bad. Think of them as sort of training wheels that you'll phase out as you get better. You're going to make your own table, acronyms, metalanguage, definition, function, and an example. The better your example, the easier things will be going forward, B and C, as you'll have examples in front of you that you can actually use. So these are all elements of cohesion. Okay, self-C is the thing that we use for cohesion, and cohesion itself just means sort of sticking together. Inference is when you can, from the context of the text, so not explicitly stated information, but things that you can work out from context or from prior knowledge. Logical ordering, think of an essay, you typically do TEAL, or for English we do FEE, or we do PQE. These are sort of structures that we use to make information easier to understand. Formatting, just think of a newspaper without the structural elements, the dividing separate articles into separate columns, the sort of title at the top, date down the bottom, pictures with captions, all those sort of things. Formatting that kind of helps us understand things and the way they sort of flow naturally. Consistency, umbrella term, for a range of features, basically similar words, similar domain, similar semantic field, similar sentence type, sentence structures, the things that make a text appear consistent. It's not going off on tangents and talking on different topics, it's consistent to itself. Conventions, sort of just the way the things are set out and the kind of writing that makes up them. Okay, so as we just said, cohesion is the sticking together of elements. And these are the things we use to memorize those elements. So LC cache is lexical choice plus cache. So collocation, words that go together in combinations, choc chip, fish and chips, salt and pepper, those sort of things that always go in combinations. Antonymy, words that mean the opposite. Synonymy, words that are related to one another. Hyponymy, as we've talked about before, you've got your superordinate or your hypernym at the top. Hyper means over, hypo means under. Hyponymy is sort of fitting within a category. Okay, so this is probably the most complicated acronym we've got, cohesion, and these are information flow, which is sort of how the information is presented. The acronym we've got is CAFE, C, cadres. A cadre is a collection of cadets, or new trainees in the army. CAFE is where you get your coffee, and the C is just hanging out in the middle. Clefting, splitting a sentence. There's two types of clefting, but you will need to check the orange textbook for that specifically, but it's basically turning a sentence and taking the clause out and turning it into a sentence of itself, basically. Anaphoric is basically, I try and think of, if you imagine a text, I would write A and C, and A is referring back up to the top, and C is referring down to the bottom. So anaphoric is referring to something that's already been covered. So Stephen Colbert is a teacher, he is tall. So the he is referring back to the top. Cataphoric being the opposite. So we had a teacher, we later learned his name was Mr. Colbert. So the referent or the reference is going down, basically is how I remember it. Front focus, we've talked about that elsewhere, is moving the focus of the sentence to the front. End focus is typically how our sentences go. The key information is at the end. Conjunction, connect things together using clauses. You can add the fanboys in there for a range of conjunctions that you can memorize, for, and, but, nor, those sort of things. Adverbials, add a little bit more information, essentially. Deictics is a tricky one, but it's basically when from the context it's not entirely clear what it was. So if you read on a piece of paper, grab that pen, unless you're in the room looking at me pointing at a pen, you'd probably have no idea. So that's deicsis or deictics. Repetition is repeating the same thing. Ellipses, taking out unnecessary information. And substitution is replacing one element with another one. So pronouns would be an easy example, probably adding acronyms later on, like you might say the Program for International Student Assessment, full, and then say PISA, and from then on you call it PISA or the test or the study or those sort of things as sort of substituting the noun for an alternative to keep it sort of interesting. All right, these are our features of spoken discourse. So we've got deep, dip it, and APOC, DPIT, APOC, not the best. Discourse particles are your ums, your ahs, your ers, or I don't know, or sort of, I don't know, like whatever. Interrogative tags are sort of when you say a phrase. So I really love Chinese food. Do you also love Chinese food? Turns my phrase into a question. Adjacency pairs. How are you? Good. Good, thanks. How was your day? Good. How about you? Just sort of things that always go together. If you can break the rules and make sort of, if I say how are you and you actually tell me how you are, that's basically not an adjacency pair, but it's an expected response. Openings and closings. Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. The famous end of a speech closing for all students for some reason. So these are our spoken discourse non-fluency features, like I just did one then. You've got pauses. These can be for purpose or just by accident, as you think of an example. Filled pauses, repetition is sort of, you've got or like, or wait, holding the floor, using repetition. False start is when you say. So all of these are about metalanguage. No, sorry, not metalanguage. Let me go back to the start. These are all spoken discourse. So you're sort of false starting, and a repair is what I just did. So you're going back and fixing it up, and you're saying, or forget that, or that's off the record, or something like that, as a way to repair the error that you made. Tricky one. MRBPTT Probably the acronym's not going to work for this one, but hey, this is what we've got. Minimal response or back channeling. Yeah, right, gotcha. Yep, yep. So as someone else is talking, you're kind of encouraging them. You're saying, yeah, I'm paying attention. As a married man, these are very important that I use when my wife is speaking. Interesting. Oh, okay, right. To show that I'm alert. Turn taking, holding, and passing the floor. They're all pretty self-explanatory, but ways that you sort of take the floor. And topic management is how you keep to the same topic or how you change it. So by using topic management, using the phrase, yeah, that's interesting. And how about your work is sort of one way that you can pivot. So that's you managing the topic. Okay, LAP, you've got listing, antithesis, parallelism. So listing dot points, series of commas, breaking up clauses, different little examples of things. I like eating, running, jogging, jumping, punching, or a dot point list of those. Antithesis is kind of a juxtaposition. You're contrasting two things. I love to work, but I hate weekends, or something that's a terrible example. Parallelism is where you do very similar things across two different paragraphs, or two different sentences rather. So something like, it was a good day, it was a bad day. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Parallelism is sort of that, copying the structure of one another to make a nice little parallel, a nice little connection across sentences. Right, front focus, and end weight. End weight is sort of just a theory. End weight is generally English is an end weight language, the same way it's a SVO language. You tend to put the important information at the end. Front focus is doing the opposite of that, where you put, for effect usually, you put the most important part of the information at the front. End focus is the opposite of that. All right, retrieval practice. Put all your notes away, grab a piece of paper, see if you can recall any of the elements of these acronyms as we go through them. SILF CC, LC Cash, Cafe C Cadres, and LA. FFEFE, DPITAPOC or DIPIT APOC, Mr. BPTTTHPTM, probably the worst acronym I've come up with.